Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our special live coverage on the escalating tensions between the United States and Iran. I am Sheikha Tamimi, and I bring you the latest updates as the situation develops. Earlier today, the U.S. military carried out new airstrikes in Iran near the Strait of Hormuz, claiming self-defense as the two sides continued talks on an elusive deal to end the war. U.S. Central Command spokesperson Navy Captain Tim Hawkins said the attacks were self-defense strikes and included missile launch sites and Iranian boats attempting to emplace mines. A defense official said the strikes were in Bandar Abbas in southern Iran near the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump revealed several proposals under consideration in negotiations with Iran regarding the handling of Tehran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium, including transferring it to the United States for disposal or destroying it at another location under the supervision of the international monitoring bodies. Following this, oil prices rose as investor optimism over an imminent U.S.-Iran peace deal was tempered by new U.S. airstrikes in the Middle East. As for gold, prices fell following new U.S. attacks in Bandar Abbas, which in turn fueled concerns around inflation and higher for longer interest rates. Stay tuned with us to provide real-time analysis from our experts and correspondents around the world.
الإدارة العامة للدفاع المدني على استعداد تام وجاهزية عالية، ونعمل وفق خطط مدروسة ومحدثة باستمرار لمواجهة أي طارئ، ونتابع مع الجهات الحكومية كل ما يخص احتياجاتها لضمان استمرار نظام سير العمل وعجلة الإنتاج وسير الحياة الطبيعية، ونقول للجميع سلامتكم أولويتنا.
Joining us firstly is our correspondent Dina Abi Saab from Geneva. Dina, thank you for being with us as always.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
I'm going to dive right in as usual, and I want to ask, how do you assess the statement by European Commissioner President Ursula von der Leyen welcoming progress in U.S.-Iran talks while emphasizing the importance of keeping the Strait of Hormuz open?
Actually, her statement reflects a very careful European balancing act. On one hand, she is welcoming any progress in dialogue between Washington and Tehran because Europe has a strong interest in preventing another escalation in the Gulf. On the other hand, her emphasis on keeping the Strait of Hormuz open shows that Europe is also speaking from a position of strategic vulnerability. The strait is one of the world's most important energy choke points, and any disruption would immediately affect oil markets, shipping, insurances, and global confidence. For Kuwait, for example, this is not a theoretical issue. Any threat to Hormuz can quickly affect the entire Gulf region, including export routes, market prices, and maritime security. So von der Leyen warning is not just diplomatic language, it's also a message about Europe's dependence on regional stability. It suggests that Europe sees the Iran file not only through the nuclear lens, but also through the lens of trade security, energy flow, and broader economic resilience.
Now, Dina, do you see the European position as a genuine diplomatic push toward de-escalation or more as a response to energy and security concerns?
It is, we can say it is both, but the energy and security concerns are very strong. Europe certainly prefers de-escalation because war in the Gulf would create immediate risk for its own economies, shipping routes, and internal political stability. A widening conflict would mean higher energy costs, inflation pressure, and more instability in global markets. So there is a real diplomatic instinct to reduce tension and avoid military confrontation. At the same time, Europe is also acting out of self-interest. It's not only trying to prevent war from humanitarian or legal reasons, it's also trying to protect its own strategic environment. The EU has learned that crises in the Middle East rarely remain confined there. They spill into Europe through energy markets, migration pressure, cyber risks, and security concerns. So the European position should be understood as a mix of principle and pragmatism. It is a genuine push for calm, but it's also a defensive response to risks that Europe cannot ignore.
Now, given rising tensions, how unified is the European Union in its approach towards Iran?
The European Union is united at the level of broad principles, but not fully united on strategy. Most member states agree that they do not want a wider war, that they want to preserve freedom of navigation, and that they want to prevent further nuclear escalation. But when it comes to the tools and tone of policy, differences between the countries became more clear. So capitals want stronger pressure. Some want more dialogue, and some are more cautious about appearing aligned with Washington. This is a familiar pattern in EU foreign policy. Europe often speaks with one voice on the need for restraint, but less consistently on how to achieve it. France and Germany, for example, often support diplomatic engagement, while other states prioritize deterrence, sanctions, or closer coordination with the United States. So the EU is not divided in a dramatic sense, but it is also not strategically seamless. In a crisis involving Iran that limits Europe's ability to act quickly and decisively as a single geopolitical actor.
Now, in your opinion, Dina, can Europe realistically act as an independent mediator between Washington and Tehran, or is it constrained by US policy alignment?
Europe can mediate, but only within limits. It has diplomatic experience, channels of communication, and a long history of engagement with Iran, especially in previous nuclear negotiations. It can host discussions, encourage restraint, and help keep political contact alive when others are cutting ties. But it cannot act as a fully independent mediator in the way a truly neutral power might. Europe is too closely linked to the United States in security, intelligence, and financial architecture. That means the European role is often more complementary than independent. If Washington does not want a European initiative, or if Tehran sees Europe as simply echoing US pressure, then Europe's room to maneuver becomes narrow and narrow. Its credibility also depends on whether both sides see it as a useful and not just symbolic. So Europe can be an important bridge, but it's not the principal power in the room. It is constrained by alliance politics, by its own divisions, and by the reality that the United States still sets the broader strategic framework.
Now, how serious are the concerns in Europe regarding cybersecurity and hybrid threats linked to the Iran conflict?
These concerns are very serious. They are growing. European officials now understand that conflicts linked to Iran are not limited to missile drones or battlefield developments. They can also involve cyber attacks, online disinformation, intimidation operations, sabotage attempts, and pressure on critical infrastructure. Europe's energy system, ports, airports, financial network, and government institutions are all potential targets in the wider hyper conflict environment. What makes this particularly worrying is that hybrid threats are hard to detect early, and even harder to attribute publicly. A cyber attack may be launched by state-linked actors, proxy groups, or hidden intermediaries, making immediate relation difficult. That uncertainty itself becomes a strategic weapon. Europe is aware that any sharp escalation involving Iran could produce spillover effects far beyond the Middle East. So these are not secondary concerns. They are now part of how Europe security planners assess the Iran crisis in general.
Now, can you tell us to what extent has the Iran conflict shifted from a regional crisis into a direct challenge to European security and stability?
It has shifted significantly. The Iran conflict is still geographically rooted in the Middle East, but its effects are now clearly felt in Europe's security environment. This happens through energy prices, maritime routes, cyber risks, and the broader uncertainty that affects investment and the public confidence. Europe is not a direct battlefield. It is no longer an outside observer either. It's exposed. For Kuwait and Gulf audience, this point is important because it shows how interconnected the system has become. A crisis in the Gulf can affect European inflation, transport costs, and the strategic planning within days. Likewise, instability in Europe can shape how Western governments respond to the region. So the conflict should be seen as regional in origin, but international in impact. For Europe, it's now a matter of security resilience, not only foreign policy.
Now, I want to move on into something else. And how do you interpret Iran's legal framing of war damages under international law, particularly its reference to compensation mechanisms?
Iran's legal framing is an attempt to move the debate from politics to law. But speaking in terms of war damage, compensation, and responsibility, Tehran is trying to cast itself as a state that has suffered unlawful harm and is therefore entitled to remedies. This is a significant diplomatic move because it places the conflict within the vocabulary of international legal accountability rather than purely military relations. That said, the legal framing also serves a political purpose. It internationalizes Iran's grievances, seeks legitimacy, and create pressure on opposing state by suggesting that their conduct may have legal consequences. In practice, compensation claims in international law require much more than political accusation. They need evidence, attribution, also and a clear legal pathway. So Iran's framing, it's meaningful, but it's only the beginning of a much harder legal process.
Now, can you tell our viewers, in international law, how important is proving an unlawful act as a first step in any compensation claim?
It's absolutely central. Before any compensation can be awarded, the claimant must show that an unlawful act occurred. In international law, compensation is not a general moral reward for suffering. It's a legal remedy that follows from responsibility. That means the first task is to establish that a breach of an international obligation took place, whether through direct action, support, facilitation, or failure to act where required. Without providing unlawfulness, the claim cannot move forward in a serious legal forum. This is one of the main reasons wartime compensation cases are so difficult. States often disagree not only about facts, but also about whether a particular use of force, strike, or support operation were legal or illegal under the UN Charter and other applicable rules. So the first legal battle is usually over characterizing the conduct itself. Only once it's established can questions of damage and compensation be addressed.
Now, how difficult is it in practice, according to your experience, to establish state responsibility and causation in a conflict involving multiple actors?
It's extremely difficult. Modern conflicts rarely involve one clear actor and one clear act. They often involve regular armies, allied groups, intelligence networks, proxy forces, logistics chains, and overlapping operational zones. In such conditions, providing or proving who is legally responsible for a specific harm becomes a major challenge. The legal standard is not just to show that damage occurred, but to show a sufficiently direct connection between the conduct of a state and the harm suffered. We can say that causation is especially difficult because multiple forces may have contributed to the same outcome. One side may provide intelligence, another may supply weapons, and another may open territory or airspace. In court, each of those links would need careful proof. That is why state responsibility cases in conflict setting are often politically powered, but legally hard to finalize. The more actors involved, the more room there is for denials and the evidentiary disputes.
Now, Iran has referred to Article 16 of the draft articles on state responsibility. How significant is the issue of indirect support or facilitation by third states?
Article 16 is very significant because it addresses the responsibility of state that aids or assists another state in committing an internationally wrongful act. This means that indirect support can matter legally, not just direct participation. If Iran is invoking Article 16, it's trying to argue that some third states may not have carried out attacks themselves, but may have enabled or facilitated them in a way that creates legal exposure. This is an important concept in the contemporary conflict because modern warfare often relies on indirect support. Intelligence sharing, logistics, airspaces, airspace access, territory use, and refueling or operational coordinating. So under Article 16, such support could matter if it gives with knowledge of the wrongful act and if it substantially contributes to it. But the standard remains demanding. Iran would need to show both the assistance and the legal link to the underlying violation. So the article is important, but it doesn't make responsibility automatic.
Could providing territory, logistics, or intelligence to a military operation be enough to trigger international responsibility for supporting states?
Yes, it could, but only under certain conditions. International law does not treat every form of support as automatically unlawful. The key questions are whether the support was substantial, whether the supporting state knew the likely purpose of the assistance, and whether the underlying operation was itself illegal. If those elements are proven, then providing territory logistics or intelligence can absolutely raise responsibility concerns. For example, if a state allows its territory to be used for a military operation that violates international law or provides intelligence that is essential to the operation, the legal consequences can be serious, but the burden remains on the claimant to prove intent, knowledge, and meaningful contribution. In practice, states often deny that their support was decisive or that they had the necessary awareness. So while the legal principle is clear, the evidentiary threshold is high.
Dina, how do you evaluate Iran's claim that some regional countries were involved directly or indirectly in attacks on its territory?
This kind of claim must be assessed carefully and with caution. It may be politically credible from Iran's perspective, but legally it still requires solid proof. Accusations or direct or indirect involvement are serious because they can point to state responsibility, complicity, or facilitation. However, in conflict situation, states often rely on intelligence assessment that are not easily disclosed or tested in public legal proceedings. That creates a major problem. A legal claim needs evidence that can survive scrutiny, while a political accusation can be broader and more strategic. Iran may be using such claims to build a narrative of collective responsibility or regional complicity, but unless those allegations are backed by verifiable materials, they are unlikely to move quickly in formal legal venues. So the claim may be important diplomatically, but it is still much harder to prove in court.
Dina, can you elaborate further on what possible legal challenges that may exist in translating such accusations into formal compensation claims at international courts or United Nations mechanisms?
The biggest challenge is jurisdiction. Even if a state believes it has been wronged, it cannot simply bring every case to an international court unless the other side has accepted the court's authority or there is a treaty basis for the claim. The second challenge is evidence. Compensation claims require precise proof of the act, the actor, the damage, the causal chain. In conflict settings, that evidence is often fragmented, secret, or disputed. There is also the problem of enforcement. Even if a legal body issues findings or recommendations, getting actual compensation is another matter. UN mechanisms can help document violations and increase political pressure, but they often cannot force payment or full compliance. So the legal road is very narrow, very slow, and highly dependent on political circumstances. That is why many wartime claims remain unresolved for years, even when the underlying harm is real.
In your own opinion and thought, are demands for cessation of unlawful acts and non-repetition guarantees realistic outcomes in a conflict of this scale?
They are realistic as legal principles, but difficult as immediate outcome. In international law, cessation and non-repetition are standard remedies. They aim to stop the wrongful conduct and reduce the chance that it happens again. But in a large scale, conflict involving multiple state and armed actors, those remedies usually require a wider political settlement, ceasefire, framework, or negotiated security arrangement. So the demands are legitimate, but they are not easy to secure through law alone. In practice, states tend to agree to such guarantees only when there is a pressure or mediation or a broader peace process. Without that, the language of cessation and non-repetition may remain more general and more general than operational. It is still important, though, because it shows that the goal of international law is not only to punish after the fact, but also to prevent future harm.
Now, ultimately, Dina, as our final question, can international law meaningfully address wartime damages and accountability in the current Iran-West tensions, or is politics still dominant over legal processes?
International law can absolutely matter, but politics remain dominant in practice. Law provides the vocabulary of responsibility, evidence, reparations, and restraint. It helps states frame their claim, document harm, and preserve the principle that force must have legal limits. That is not insignificant. In fact, without law, the entire debate would become even more raw and power-based. But when major powers, regional alliances, and strategic interests are involved, legal processes do not operate in a vacuum. Enforcement depends on political will, institutional access, and the willingness of states to submit to judgment. In the Iran-West context, the law may shape the debate, but politics will usually decide the outcome. So the realistic view is that international law is necessary, useful, and potentially influential, but it's rarely stronger than geopolitics itself.
Dina Abi Saab, our correspondent from KTV correspondent from Geneva, we appreciate your valuable insight as always.
Thank you.
Now, dear viewers, as I stated earlier, in latest developments regarding the Strait of Hormuz, U.S. forces carried out attacks against Iranian targets near the strait in what was described as self-defense operations. Amid the rising tensions, top Iranian officials arrive in Qatar's Doha for talks on key disputes and a potential deal to end the war. Stay tuned for the details.
Over the past few weeks, international focus has intensified around attempts to reduce the conflict, reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and prevent a wider regional escalation. Although recent statements from both sides suggest progress toward a possible agreement, major political and security disagreements remains unresolved. The situation has created uncertainty across the region, and Gulf countries, international allies, and global organizations closely monitor every new development. Recent reports indicate that the United States and Iran have been engaged in indirect and direct diplomatic discussions aimed at reducing tensions after months of military confrontation and political escalation. U.S. President Donald Trump recently stated that Washington and Tehran had largely negotiated an understanding that could eventually lead to a border agreement. Trump emphasized that the discussions were moving in a positive direction, but also warned that the United States would not rush into any deal without securing strong guarantees and a long-term commitment from Iran. Iranian officials have responded cautiously to these statements, while Tehran confirmed that negotiations are ongoing. Iranian representatives stressed that no final agreement has been reached and that several critical issues remain unresolved. Iran continues to insist on the removal of sanctions and the security guarantees and respect for its regional role before accepting any formal agreement. Iranian leaders also rejected suggestions that they would abandon their strategic influence in the region or fully suspend all nuclear-related activities without a clear commitment from Washington. One of the main areas of discussions involved the Strait of Hormuz, which has become the center of the crisis. The strategic waterway connects the Gulf region to international shipping routes and has seen major disruptions during the conflict. Both sides are reportedly discussing temporary measures that would allow commercial vessels to move safely through the area while border negotiations continue. International powers and Gulf countries have strongly supported efforts to secure the strait because of the fear that continued instability could lead to a wider regional conflict. The military situation between the United States and Iran remains tense despite ongoing diplomatic talks aimed at reducing conflict. Both sides have maintained a strong military presence in the region, especially around key Gulf waterways, while also signaling a willingness to avoid full-scale escalation. At the same time, Iran's nuclear program continues to be a major point of the disagreement, with the U.S. pushing for tighter restrictions and monitoring while Iran insists its activities are for peaceful purpose. Although discussions are ongoing and some progress have been reported, these core security and nuclear issues remain unresolved and continue to slow down any potential agreement. Meanwhile, regional reactions to the crisis have also been significant. Gulf countries, including Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar, have called for diplomatic solutions and regional stability. Many Gulf leaders are concerned that the continuing of the conflict could threaten security, trade routes, and political stability through the Middle East. International powers, including Europe, China, Russia, and the United Nations, are actively urging the United States and Iran to continue diplomatic talks and avoid further escalation, warning that a wider conflict could threaten global security. Attention has also been focused on U.S. President Donald Trump's statements, which have shifted between cautious optimism about the progress and firm warnings that pressure will continue if Iran does not cooperate. Despite ongoing negotiations and some signs of reduced tensions, deep mistrust between Washington and Tehran remains, and uncertainty continues over whether a stable and lasting agreement can be reached in the near future. In conclusion, the latest development between the United States and Iran represent an important moment for the future of the Middle East. Diplomatic efforts have created cautious optimism, but unresolved disagreements over security sanctions, military activity, and nuclear issues continue to threaten the progress. Gulf countries and the international community remain focused on the negotiations, hoping that dialogue and diplomacy can prevent further conflict and bring a greater stability to the region.
Dear viewers, welcome back to our continuous live coverage. And now joining us live from Pakistan is Abdulrahman Al-Salhi, political analyst. Mr. Al-Salhi, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me with you, and good evening.
Good evening. Now, I want to ask, how do you interpret the recent passage of LNG, also known as liquefied natural gas, and oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, despite ongoing regional tensions?
It seems there is like a positive signal nowadays, and there is like a hidden agreement, at least, or type of understanding between all parties, all sides, not only just Washington and Tehran, but there is, I think, like a type of understanding that which allows these types of vessels and very large, even crude, carriers which pass through the Strait of Hormuz, either last week or in the last, we can say in the last 10 days. And these are a type of agreements which or type of understanding, basically not agreements, type of understanding that before even go for signing on the final MOU, which they are going to sign on it. I think this is a type of practical thing. So what we can see also from this, I think the normalization of the Strait of Hormuz is coming soon. Yeah, there was like yesterday, I have seen the news that the type of final draft of memorandum of understanding at each other are going to be signed. But this memorandum of understanding, it has one point in it that was the normalizations of Strait of Hormuz will be done within 30 days. It means that from now, they already started, allowing some vessels and some, oil tankers and LNGs in general, to pass through this, through this Hormuz Strait. And it will, I think, some understanding is going on. And there is like what we have seen. Even today I was reading in the news that there is like some vessels came to Pakistan. Today they have been reached, and also to China is going well, to South Korea as well, and to India. So means that there is, for at least for the Asian markets, the passage or the exiting, allowing these ships are going through the Strait of Hormuz. And this is a type of understanding, at least between all parties. And Tehran, it looks like they allow these, vessels and these oil markets to at least, or oil tankers to move. So they don't want more enemies, I think, at least from the Asian side.
Now, in your opinion, Mr. Salhi, does the shipping activity suggest real de-escalation on the ground, or is it only a limited exception?
Up to now, it's limited, but it is a de-escalation. What we have understood also from, their discussions here, because we are, following their activities here, even in the closed rooms, during their discussions and negotiations. What we understood from them that there will be even before they go for signing, the day of signing this type of memorandum of understanding between each other, they will allow, before that, they will see the practical of this MOU. Is it applicable or not before that? So what we have seen that passing these types of vessels and super even tankers from the Strait of Hormuz, that looks like a real escalation is going on. And that means there is, yes, it's limited now. But you can imagine if it is limited, with 30 to 40 vessels every day are passing through Strait of Hormuz. So to come back to it is normal, passes, after 1 month, like this, what they have decided in their MOU, it will take 1 month to come back to it is normalizations without, any restrictions or any even fee. Yes, nowadays, there is those vessels which they are passing through Hormuz, they have to make prior, approval or notifications or getting, type of NOC from Irani side. But this also type of NOCs and approval from Irani side, it's they are willing to give them, as they don't want to increase, their enemies at least around them. And also they know that if they also, shrink or not allow these, this vessels and LNGs to move through the Strait of Hormuz, that means all the energy route will be disturbed, will be totally disturbed. And all the, again, the international economy will come again to the crisis. We have seen that Pakistan, for example, Pakistan, India, China, they are totally, or we can say mostly dependent on the Gulf energy resources, either LNG or oil. So by opening these types of, for them, it keeps, the economy at least of these countries are, functional. So there is a real escalation is going on, even if it is gradually and not, like a completely and permanent yet.
Now, can you tell us to what extent is the war affecting maritime security in the Gulf and global energy supply chains?
definitely, it affects a lot. It's affected, it affects, either Gulf countries, I mean, the Gulf maritime, security, or it affects also the countries like Pakistan, for example, here, as we mentioned this in earlier, interviews, like 50% of of offices has been off. I mean, working hours in the government. 50% and more, no, online education system education, it became like online instead of physical, so they have been changed to the online mode. The travels and the expense and wedding halls, all the functions, all the ceremonies has been, suspended at least in this time. So this, just if we talk about the internal situation of one country, and at the same time, we can compare it with other countries. This, from the countries which they are getting the oil and energy and, LNGs from Gulf countries. Gulf countries as well, they affected them because they are trying now at least to find alternative ways, at least for future, if there is any escalations in future. So they will have their alternative paths, or routes. So means that it's increasing the rate and the prices of LNG and oil in the market. But the main thing that what Pakistan, and what the other countries, the mediator countries, I'm talking specifically, and the Gulf countries, in general, they are trying their level best to de-escalate this type of, of war or conflicts, and to make the maritime security more even secure and permanent without, this is international water, and no one can control on it, and no one has the right to control on these types of, of routes, like, for example, Strait of Hormuz. So there is many effects, either internally for the countries or even international, which is increase, again, like the alternative ways for importing or exporting LNGs and oil. But what we heard that also, like some, for example, companies, they are starting to send even their oil through Africa, and means that it's again prolonging the way to reach to the destination from source to destination. So this is an issue. But I think the thing is that what we have seen, as the Prime Minister of Pakistan said, like within a 5th June, maybe there will be here a meeting in Islamabad for signing ceremony on this MOU. Then after that, 30 days for the normalizations of the Hormuz Strait at least, and 60 days according to the MOU, which has been leaked. And 60 days will be like the at least the mechanism and the way and the procedure how to deal with the Iranian nuclear program. Then after that, maybe the peaceful, the permanent at least security, the permanent at least what we can say, the permanent, Strait of Hormuz will be normalized for at least quite time. And here also what we have heard here, there might be like a type of neutral power, maybe like, for example, maybe from Pakistan or from any other country or from under UN or something like that, which they will be, in the Strait of Hormuz just to monitor the movement of the ships and to give more security even for the maritime, security and the passing of these vessels and the very large, crude carriers through these strait. So there is some progress is going on to solve the issue, even if we see it now, it's very slow or very, it takes too much or prolonging. But the area and the region in general is coming towards stability, but it's a little bit far. Islamabad maybe believes that maybe it will take like maybe 1 year, but they will not wait for 1 year. They started already practicing it from now by seeing that some vessels are moving and the gradual opening of the Strait of Hormuz at least now.
Now, Mr. Salhi, how do you view the role of Pakistan as a mediator in transmitting messages between Tehran and Washington?
From the first day of the war, Pakistan was, jumped direct for this mediation because they know that uh, if they did not come for this type of mediation, the second day will come, the crisis will affect Pakistan, as there is like a very, lengthy borders between them, more than 900 kilometers at least. And there is, like a type of sectarian as well between Pakistan and Iran. There is like here 40 million of Shia as well. There is many, type of, interventions, between each other. I mean, Pakistan and Iran. This is from one side, so they are trying, to help by mediating. And trying to be with Iran and the USA as a mediator. They are trying to help the region to be stable, and also in the same time, they have, like a full, we can say, a maximum trust from USA, because the USA, they have experienced the back channel diplomacy of Pakistan, either in 70s or in 2018 during the negotiations, between USA and Taliban, which has been, in 2021 has been succeeded. And that time, Pakistan was totally, if you can see, just people, they hear that, yeah, the negotiations between USA and Taliban in Qatar, but the real force behind that was Pakistan, who was, pushing these agreements to be done, and what we have seen, the final results. So they have a full trust, at least from the USA side. They know that this country has a geopolitical situation, first of all, and second thing, they have a very good experience in either in military or in security of the region. So they give them this type of, privilege to play with them. To play as a mediator. And Pakistan has been shifted in this, especially in this conflict, from traditional mediator to active mediator. That's what we have seen. And they became also more even than that. They have been shifted from active mediator to like a risk, assessment, what we can say, manager for that. When they give like all the risk, which will happen if they did not accept. When for example, the chief of Pakistan forces, army forces, goes to Iran himself, along with the Minister of Interior, with the chief of the intelligence in Pakistan. Means like the whole military security. Just they went to Iran. And these are not a diplomatic, type of delegations. These are also like a risk, manager, we can say like that, which they will give. They were sitting there and discuss that, how to coordinate if the war has been prolonged, especially on our borders, how we will receive the refugees, how we will reduce and escalate, the issues in our border, how we will fight with the smugglers. This is one point. Second thing, also they have given, and we have seen that in this, situation, and in this conflict, Asim Munir himself, he was taking the secret message. Either he go to USA to meet personally, or he go to Iran, and he submit these types of secret messages himself, and he wants to hear the respond from these sides. At the end of the day, he took this secret message again, these secret messages again, and he went to China. And in China, they discussed not what they have announced, only just about the investment and AI and the infrastructure. Yes, this is definitely one part which the Prime Minister of Pakistan has done it. But in the second day, we have seen that Asim Munir, he is there as a chief, as the person number one in security, and we can say the military in Pakistan. He's there just to discuss and to make what if for example, they made all the possibilities. What if this war came again? How we will do with CPAC, Pakistan-China corridor, and Jawajar, how we will help in this. So these points in general, which they were discussing there, I mean, in China. And he again also, as Pakistan, I mean, in general, they have the trust of China. They have the trust of USA. They have the trust of Iran. They have the trust of Gulf countries, as there is a lot of, type of agreements, especially defense agreements between Pakistan and Gulf countries. So playing on this as, like as a mediator among all of them, that's what Pakistan believes. And that's what Pakistan made it maybe in their foreign policy strategy since 70s.
Now, how significant is Iran's proposal for a 14-point memorandum of understanding to ending the war?
These 14 points, which has been basically sent before from Iran's side to USA through Pakistan, definitely through the mediator here of Pakistan. At that time, they were discussing that either the nuclear program, that they are ready to discuss it and they are ready to deport it even out of the country, or to elevate it or destroy it inside Iran, and just keep it for a peaceful nuclear program, and also for the Strait of Hormuz. There was, these points were there available at that time, and people, they take it, especially here, I'm talking about the Pakistani side. He took this as a positive, signal from Iranian side, and also when he sent it to USA, then they start getting like a feedback from USA. But Pakistan believes that these types of points, either from Iran or from Pakistan, from USA, it's a type of, a process of trust building between these two countries. That's why, on April 10th, it was the first meeting for them with that type of large of delegations, around 300 with 400 or something, or with 80 people, at least. Now they reach to a type of exchanging their points, and in future, maybe on 5th of June, they will have a direct, a discussion with each other. So these 5 points, Pakistan believes that, yeah, it is realistic, it needs a modification. USA also, they did not refuse it all. They have only concern, highly concerned, on the nuclear program, 1, and the Strait of Hormuz, 2. In nuclear program, Iran, they said that we have to discuss it in the future. Now in these 50 days, for example, we will mention that Iran is willing to discuss it is a nuclear program and the enriched uranium, either to deport it or to destroy it inside Iran. But we will discuss this, for the procedures and how we will deal with this. This will be in the mechanisms and the procedures and the way, in the future discussion. USA were trying, no, we need to have this point especially at the first stage, so that we say that, okay, you say that you are ready to discuss your uranium, enriched uranium, and also nuclear program, and you are ready for that? Okay, just mention that you are ready to deport it to USA. So people, they became with these types of words, small words, but for every country of these two countries, it's considered like a red line. And that's, we are up to date in this types of discussions and negotiations. Now, from those all points, what we have seen that China became inside. They enter in this type of mediation, at least from backside, or from backside of Pakistan, and they are pushing in that. And for that, maybe we'll see like a technical teams and technical committee from China to Iran, either to elevate that enriched uranium, or monitor the nuclear program there, or at least maybe to take it, take it or transfer it from Iran, or at least part of it from Iran to China.
Now, finally, Mr. Al-Salehi, do you see these developments leading to a gradual de-escalation or further escalation in the near future?
Yeah, it's coming for de-escalation. But what Pakistan at least believes now, it's a type of de-escalation, but it's very slow. I mean, yes, we have seen today, for example, there was like some strikes, U.S. strikes. Pakistan believes that these are, like side effects, you can say, of any disease. For example, this is a disease, and there is, like here and there it can happen. But the main thing that there will be no, major confrontations again between them. And there is like, as the, the mediation countries has been increased. And what we have seen that, I mean, today they are in Qatar, for example. They are discussing there in Qatar, for example, a type of their, their money, which is available in Qatar, which it has been, subjected for such sanctions, 12 billion or something like this, or 100 billion even. But there is now people, they came, I mean, both sides, both sides, they came to discuss the detailed points. And discussing the detailed points means that they came out from the confrontations and, the possibility of the war again to a detailed discussions and to the implementations of the MOU, which they are going to sign it soon. So, Gulf countries, basically, they played the important role in escalation of the area. And they played, very important, when just they supported Pakistan and when they are also in, in a coordination with all countries, they are trying to, de-escalate the situation, the confrontation or the war in the region. They have, observed, and they did not reply, for example, at least on Iran, while they were receiving some missile drones from there, but they did not respond because they believe that it can be, like a big international game, and the victim will be the whole region. So they did a very well and very good way just to de-escalate the region, and now the region is coming to be de-escalated. Yes, it will take time. Maybe I told you, maybe it will take like 1 year, maybe it will take 3-6 months, something like that. But from now, it's coming, like, it will be like opening in gradual. This is it.
Mr. Abdulrahman Al-Salhi, political analyst from Pakistan, we thank you for your valuable insight.
Thank you.
Now, dear viewers, oil prices rose as investor optimism over an imminent U.S.-Iran peace deal was tempered by new U.S. strikes in the Middle East, as I had stated earlier. And gold prices, the safe haven, fell following new U.S. attacks in Iran, which in turn fueled concerns around inflation and higher for longer interest rates. These are the details.
Over recent months, tensions between the US and Iran have created uncertainty in the global markets, mainly due to concern over security in the Strait of Hormuz. While diplomatic talks have raised hope for possible agreement, key disagreements remain unresolved, keeping the investor and government cautious. The strait is one of the world's most important shipping routes, with Gulf countries like Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, and Bahrain heavily depend on it for oil and gas exports. As tensions rose, fears of disrupted shipping pushed up global energy costs and increasing pressure on trade and transportation. For Gulf countries, the economic effects have been immediate and significant. Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain remain especially vulnerable because they rely heavily on maritime export through the Strait of Hormuz and have limited alternative export routes. Qatar liquefied natural gas export faced delays, while Iraq and Kuwait experienced concern about reducing oil flow and lower shipping efficiency. Although Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates possess some pipeline infrastructure that bypasses the strait, they still remain exposed to regional instability, investor cautious, and raising security expenditure. Gulf stock markets initially declined during the peak of the crisis as investors feared of prolonged distribution to energy markets and regional trade. Recently, however, financial markets have shown signs of recovery following reports that United States and Iran are moving closer toward diplomatic understanding. U.S. President Donald Trump stated that negotiations between the two countries had made significant progress regarding a possible agreement that could reopen the Strait of Hormuz and reduce military tension, while both governments later clarified that difficult issues remain unresolved. The tone of negotiations has improved investor confidence. As a result, stock markets across the Gulf countries, European and the United States recorded gains, while oil prices and the US dollar weakened due to expectation of improving energy supplies. Meanwhile, oil markets have reacted strongly to every development in the conflict. During the heat of tensions, fears of supply shortages pushed oil prices above $100 per barrel, fueling concern about global inflation and slowing the economic growth. More recently, oil prices dropped sharply after optimism grew that shipping routes may reopen. Despite the decline, analysts continue to warn that restoring normal energy flows may take months because damaged infrastructure, restricted shipping access, and ongoing geopolitical risks continue to affect the production and the transportation. The impact of the crisis has extended far beyond the Middle East. Higher energy costs contributed to inflation pressure across major global economies, forcing central banks to reconsider their monetary policies. Before the conflict intensified, many economists expected interest rate cuts in major economies during 2026. However, rising oil and fuel prices increased inflation concern, causing markets to expect higher interest rates for a longer period. This shift has affected consumer spending, borrowing cuts, and business investment around the world. Gold prices also reacted to these developments as investors move funds into safe haven asset during period of uncertainty. Global trade and supply chains have also been affected by the instability in the Gulf region. Asian economies, especially China, Japan, and the South Korea, remain heavily dependent on Middle Eastern oil and gas imports. Meanwhile, any disruption in the Strait of Hormuz threatens manufacturing activity, transportation costs, and industrial production in these economies. The global and Gulf economic outlook depends largely on diplomacy and the security of key energy routes. If tensions ease and the Strait of Hormuz stabilize, oil prices could steady, inflation may fall, and confidence in trade would likely improve. If tension escalate, however, energy shocks, higher inflation, weaker growth, and greater global uncertainty could return. In conclusion, the ongoing U.S.-Iran tensions or uncertainty surrounding the Strait of Hormuz remain among the most important economic and geopolitical issues affecting the world today. The Gulf region countries continuing to play a central role in global energy security, making development in the Middle East highly influential for financial markets, inflation, trade, and economic stability worldwide. While recent diplomatic progress has offered hope for de-escalation, the situation remains fragile, and the global economy continues to closely monitor every development in the region.
Dear viewers, you are still watching our continuous live coverage, and we've had our insight shared from Geneva as well as Pakistan. And now we turn to Washington, where we are joined via Zoom with Abdulrahman Yusuf, a political analyst. Hello, Abdulrahman.
Thank you for having me. Hello.
Now, I want to ask, how significant is President Donald Trump's decision not to rush into a deal with Iran, and what message does it send to Tehran?
Donald Trump sends two messages. One internal for his allies in Republican. He wanna reassure them that like there will not be any concedes or any giving up for any like strong points for USA to Tehran, and he will not removing his conditions on a high enrichment uranium. And we saw yesterday he posted in Truth Social that he made a very significant step when he said immediately this in high enrichment uranium whether to be turned over to the USA or be destroyed in Iran under the observation of like International Committee or IAEA or like any other like nuclear organization that can observe this destroying. And this is a message for his like allies. For Tehran, he want to signal that there will no rush, and he still has like the strength over the peace method. It still has military posture in the Gulf. And we saw yesterday the CENTCOM spokesperson. He mentioned that USA Army targeted some Iranian like military boats in the Strait of Hormuz, and he said this was like a defensive action. So the USA want to say that they are not under pressure of time. They are not under pressure of any Iranian condition, and they still leading this negotiation, and they still have the upper hand. And in meanwhile, that gives like a broader time for his negotiators to like create a strong deal, specifically that he always comparing himself with Obama. So he want to make sure as well that Iran will not take that like this $1 billion of freeze like sanction money or like freeze money without like real forward step, because we know like Iran are very good in terms of patient and negotiation and the maneuvering, and therefore Donald Trump he want to say he is not under any type of pressure, and he will not let them to manipulate him in terms of negotiation.
Now, do you believe the proposed 60-day ceasefire extension could lead to a broader diplomatic breakthrough between Washington and Tehran?
Yeah, sure, and it could like cool down all this tension, but like we need both parties to deal with it as a bridge, not as a time for like rebuilding or reconstruct their military and their weapon. But thankfully, we have like multiple mediators now, like Qatar, Pakistan, Egypt, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Gulf states. They might put like high pressure, and they will have like wider time to create something more reasonable, more rational, that can convince both sides to like end this war and like reshape the security of the region. So 60 days is a very good chance, very good opportunity to end this war and build this bridge and cool down all these tensions.
Now, how much leverage does Iran currently have in negotiations given its strategic position near the Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, they have, of course, leverage of Strait of Hormuz. Either bother all the world, all international community, the market, global market, energy, security, and like this is the main complicated issue, and this is like first point in negotiation. And other than that, Iran doesn't have so much to do. Like they under like pressure of like collapsed economy. Like they haven't like paid like their salary for their like employee for longer time. Yes, they have some plastic missiles here and there, but they are not. They don't have the same effect as the Strait of Hormuz. So if we solve this Strait of Hormuz issue, I think Iran will not have that strong leverage over the negotiation.
Now, could disagreements within the Republican Party weaken President Trump's negotiating position on Iran?
Yes and no. Like from a side that, as I said in the first answer, that made Donald Trump like more patient to not sign any bad deal or subject to Iran manipulating or maneuver actions or rush to sign any deal without considering like Gulf state security. But in another hand, of course, it put pressures because that means like he's going to lose his allies in the USA, and that give a bad signal that like the midterm election could really affect the Republican Party very bad. Therefore, it could be like two sword edge. Therefore, I think yes, it's gonna put pressure. But if he moved fast and is smarter, I think it will be not that bad effect on him.
Now, in your opinion, Mr. Abdulrahman, what are the biggest obstacles preventing a final agreement between the United States and Iran?
Strait of Hormuz and the high enrichment uranium. Now, Donald Trump sent the ball to the Iranian court. So, like, Iran now must take a decision. Iran always said, like, we will not turn over this high enrichment uranium out of the Iran. Now, Donald Trump said, okay, yes, let's destroy it inside Iran. This, of course, is a very smart move from Donald Trump. And now Iran, if they refused, that show that they are not going to make a deal, or like they are causing this whole problem. And another one is the Strait of Hormuz. We know that Iran want to see some releasing some money, releasing some assets, freeze assets, and relieve these sanctions. And Donald Trump and the USA said, like, you have to open the Strait of Hormuz within 30 days. Therefore, this is a very complicated thing, because Donald Trump, as I said, always comparing himself with Obama and Iranian people. They want to have some $1 billion first. Therefore, like, this is a complicated thing. If he's going to subject to their conditions, or he's going to be more flexible and release some freeze money, and like this is, if they solve this issue, I think like everything is gonna be much easier because like Strait of Hormuz, as we said, like it's the most strong card in with Iran.
What about sanctions relief? How likely is it that it becomes a sticking point in the future negotiations?
Yes, it's biggest sticking points, because the USA and Iran, they have lack of trust. Like no one trusts each other. Everyone, every side, like they think that if they take a step, the other party will not take the same step they agreed about, and they will postpone and procrastinate. Therefore, this is the most complicated part of the negotiation. Therefore, like I think the mediators needs to work on it strongly and like give it like more attention. Maybe therefore we saw the Kalibaf and Aragji went yesterday to Qatar for continuing this part of negotiation.
Abdulrahman Youssef, a political analyst from Washington, we thank you for your valuable insight once again.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Dear viewers, between military escalation, mounting pressure on the global economy, and the rapid depletion of energy reserves, the Middle East remains at the center of an increasingly fragile international equation. The world continues to watch closely to see whether the coming weeks will lead to diplomacy and de-escalation, or to a deeper crisis that could redefine the future of global energy and geopolitical stability for years to come. Our appreciation to our distinguished guests from Geneva, Pakistan, and the United States, and a continued thank you to you, dear viewers, for joining us, as we will continue to bring you the latest updates through our afternoon and evening bulletins, as well as our special broadcasts. Goodbye.